We have LeShun Daniels back with us. We're talking some Iowa football today. It's the offseason. Plenty to get into and some implementation of some new ideas, what Iowa's going through here as the guys are working out and getting ready for spring practice. Iowa with a monster matchup coming up tomorrow as they face off against Michigan State. How do the Hawkeyes bounce back? Being back in Carver certainly will help. We'll do that today on Locked On Hawkeyes.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
He's LeShun Daniels. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also find us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button while you're there. It helps us and get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. They're the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. LeShun, it's been a while. What's happening to your neck?
Yeah, it's been a good little minute. But I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back on and talking the Hawks. Nothing crazy going on. It's been obviously a little boring on this side without any football going on now. I mean, obviously now we got XFL and got a few Hawkeyes playing, but no college football, no NFL. So I've really been hunkering down and paying attention to a lot of college basketball and a lot of NBA now. But yeah, we're feeling good and happy to be back on.
So you mentioned the XFL, and we got the USFL coming up here in about a month, I think, that they get started.
hmm
I can't get into it. I've tried in the different iterations of this thing. We remember the original XFL when that came out and all the pomp and circumstance that surrounded it. I just can't. I maybe it's the bad quarterback play. I know there was more scoring last week. I just can't get behind it. Don't have a team to root for. Yeah, you can jump on a team. It isn't the same. You love football though. I mean, you're a lot deeper into it than I, and you play it at a high level and all those different things. Is it something that is enjoyable for you, or is it keeping an eye on former Hawkeyes? What is it, if anything, that gets you interested in these spring football leagues?
Yeah, I mean, main thing for me is obviously just paying attention to former Hawkeyes, for sure, and then any other former teammates or people that I knew. I mean, I know there's a guy that from where I grew up, Davion Smith, who's in the XFL and he's playing. He went to Michigan, and he's still he's trying to keep his football dream alive. So I mean, I like to pay attention to those guys, and then I see any of the Hawks. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really get into it because I mean, the thing that obviously draws a lot of eyes to football is obviously good quarterback play. There's a reason why those NFL quarterbacks get paid a lot of money, and it doesn't help when the offensive line play isn't great either. Because literally, I was just talking about this with James and my dad, and we were like, yeah, a lot of times, like if you're because it's hard to find good offensive linemen to begin with. So if you're going to be like even like halfway decent, most of the time you're probably going to be playing in the NFL either as a reserve or on the practice squad on teams. So and I feel like that's kind of making the XFL and stuff not as enjoyable. There's still some big time plays that get made. I mean, now and again, and it's obviously good to see former NFL players in it. But yeah, I kind of understand why people aren't drawn to it just enough, just because I mean the level of football isn't quite as good as what you're used to on Sundays, and then a lot of times, yeah, like you said, people don't really have a team to root for unless you're in a city where there is a team. So
And even with that, hearing people in some of those cities, it's difficult to wrap your mind around. Well, that kind of leads us into a good conversation here with some Iowa football, and that's where we're going to begin today's conversation, talking about this Hawkeye football team. It's the off season. We've talked before, LeShun, about what these guys are going through at this point in time, what they're getting ready for. Obviously, the workouts that they're going through, the early calls, getting up there, going through weight training, goals that they're looking to attain, all those different things. But we're looking at an offseason where there's going to be some changes. I think schematically, Iowa was just so behind the eight ball a year ago. Offensive line was, wide receivers didn't have a whole lot of depth there. Quarterback play that was poor. I mean, you had all these things that really handcuffed the offense in a way that made it deplorable. And absolutely, they're going to get better from what they were a year ago. You guys went through an offseason with a lot of tumult as well when you were playing 2014 going into the 2015 season. And though there weren't a whole lot of schematic changes, I know you guys moved practice time. That was a big impact to the program. You guys went up and started doing morning practices, but there were also some tweaks that you did, offensively. And that's what you anticipate this is going to be tweaks. You're going to be able to do more with better players. When it comes to those tweaks, is that something that is just implemented when you get to spring football, when you're actually out there on the practice field, or are those conversations and, hey, we're going to tweak some things in the playbook or audibles or whatever it is that things that are also happening right now for this football team?
Yeah, so it's definitely kind of both, right? So especially really for the quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks, they're working with the coaches, really essentially from the point that they get back every opportunity that they're allowed to, going over the playbook, obviously talking about a bunch of things that they liked from last year and some things that they, quite honestly just didn't like. I see still having Spencer in the building obviously allows a little bit of a bridge between years and can provide input on what things felt like went well, things that obviously didn't go well, and then obviously with Cade coming from Michigan and how they ran their offense, obviously he's going to speak on things that he liked a bunch when he was playing and he was their quarterback, and some things that he didn't like, and you're just finding a way to kind of mold all those things together, and then it kind of slowly gets to the rest of the offense, right? So a lot of times for the running backs, I mean, especially for us running backs, we went over stuff, but we didn't really go over stuff. It was just like quarterbacks, they
Run
got all the
left, right, run
information.
right, pick up a block.
Yeah, quarterbacks got all the information, and they're like, "Yeah, you're just gonna do this," and we're just like, "Yeah, all right, cool." But a lot of the installs, it's gonna come spring ball, and spring ball is essentially gonna be like really like the trial run of really a bunch of things that you're planning on doing for the fall. So obviously it's not going to be the entire playbook. Not everything is going to be entirely hashed out, but a good portion of it, of what you're going to be trying to do, is going to be getting implemented in those spring ball practices. um, and you're going to want to find some things that really kind of carry over, that you feel like your guys can do really well offensively, to put points on the board. Obviously a big change from, going from 2014 to 2015 is, so we had some different players and some different guys in different spots. Some guys that were obviously able to create a little bit more explosives and different plays from the offensive standpoint, from a talent perspective. Um, so when we kind of went through that transition, it wasn't like anything that was crazy, drastic, complete overhaul. And obviously everyone saw that. It wasn't like we were running anything that was crazy different. It was just, we were just using the abilities of our guys that were around us, and using it to the best of their abilities, and putting everyone in spots to succeed. So a lot right now, yeah, they're gonna be working on it. And especially where we at essentially the last week of February, like now they're getting into what we used to do, skills and drills, and basically the quarterbacks are like going to run plays, through basically their knowledge and any like play sheets and stuff that they have, that they can go off of, so we can try to get a little bit of rhythm, so when we do actually get into spring ball, that we can kind of hit the ground running. But yeah, a lot of the coaching and a lot of the adjustment in the playbook is going to come in a month from now, when they actually get on the practice field.
Well, you talked about Cade McNamara. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new Hawkeye quarterback. What kind of autonomy is he going to have with this Iowa offense? What we're going to see, maybe schematically, some changes that can happen there. And of course, we get ready for a huge weekend in Iowa basketball. Saturday, it's Iowa back at home against Michigan State, where the Hawkeyes sit as they get ready for that one. Looking at some NCAA tournament numbers for them. And the Iowa women on Sunday with game day in Iowa City. Women's game day will be there at a matchup against the second-ranked team in the country. Also, Iowa baseball this weekend starts today against Sam Houston State. They get number one LSU coming up on Saturday. That's all as we roll through here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Our friends at FanDuel has geared up as we look forward to the weekend. Iowa going to be a slight favorite in the game against Michigan State. Taking a look at that number. Well, we're also at the midway point of the NBA season, and it's a perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. New customers, you're going to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. I've been a longtime player on FanDuel. Love the menu that they have. They do a great job of getting a bunch of things out there and a lot of different ways that you can bet on basketball. Money line, point scores, threes drain. You can play all that and build up an NBA money line, same game parlay. Lots of different markets that are out there right now. And their exclusive bets, including the 2x3, two three-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes of an NBA game. Plus, FanDuel lets you put those bets together, like I said, for the same game parlays. It's a chance for you to get an even bigger payout. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. Again, FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Trent, Condon, and LeShun Daniels back with you again on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. And for your second listen, don't forget about our brand new podcast. It is a great work that the guys are doing over there with Locked On College Basketball. Locked On College Basketball brings you everything you need to know inside the world of college hoops, all in one place. Our big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players with Locked On College Basketball. It's available here on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. We're talking back into it and talk about the quarterback position. So it was 3 years of Spencer Petras. It frankly did not was. Now you have a guy that I think expectations is going to raise not just what they do statistically and ability that they have to do some different things, but also offensively taking a step forward. You go back and you watch, kind of the way the offense looked under Nate Stanley and the numbers that he was able to put up. That was a pretty good quarterback number. And I think you're going to see something pretty similar here with Cade McNamara. But coming in, this is something that's different than even your era that wasn't that long ago, is with these new guys coming in. Brian Ferentz, how willing is he going to be to listen? Hey, these are the things we did at Michigan. This is what's going to work. This is also, we believe, going to work. How much autonomy do you think that Cade McNamara is going to have in those conversations with Brian, Bud Meyer, and the rest of the offensive staff?
Yeah, that's gonna be a great question, and it's really just gonna fall back on how much trust that they have in him. I mean, I feel like there's already a bunch of trust there because I mean, the fact that they went out to go get a quarterback and to bring him in the building, I feel like is already a pretty good indicator already that like, hey, like we trust that he's going to be able to come in here, he's going to be able to make the plays, and he's going to be able to do the right things to get it successful. Because I remember when CJ took the reins of being a quarterback, and uh, we slowly started, and he slowly, as he got more comfortable in the offense and started just making more and more plays and was putting us obviously in great positions to win football games, just that he got more and more autonomy on, the offense and things that he loved, things that he liked to do, and especially making audibles and getting us in good plays. I mean, a bunch of times I can just think of when, hey, like we've got a run play call, then he sees a matchup that he likes on the outside and just flicks the ball out there or throws a quick bubble screen or whatever. Like they allowed him to do those things. And I feel like that's gonna be an opportunity that Cade's gonna have just because, hey, we already feel like they've got a bunch of trust in him, the fact that they brought him in and expect him to come in here and make plays as the way that he did in 2021 for the Wolverines. So I'm excited to see how they build off of it, and I feel like that they want a quarterback that can do those things, that doesn't have to feel like a robot back there, that can make the plays needed, but also can do those plays like within the offense and being creative and being a good football player. So yeah, I'm excited to see it because yeah, we saw it a bunch with CJ. I mean, I can remember a bunch of times where CJ called an audible that we probably didn't like. We didn't even have game plan, but everyone was on the same page, and we went in and did it. And then obviously when Nate took the reins, we saw a bunch of big plays that he made during his career here, and I'm really excited to see if Cade is going to be able to have that level of trust from the coaching staff and be able to really make this offense his own.
LeShun, it's going to be a huge offseason for this team. They're putting in the work right now. Those cold days when you're getting up and you're going in and you're working out and doing those kind of things, it's something that culture-wise, that's something that maybe at times I overlook, from the outside looking in, that culture and going out there. Kirk loves to talk about leadership, and those leaders and getting guys, and you just see the guys that are juniors and seniors and they're getting ready to go off to the NFL and see the work that they put in. How important is that for the Iowa football program and the adults in the room, if you will, the older guys in that building, understanding that, hey, it's not fun. It's not the best thing out there. Yeah, you'd like to be out partying. You'd like to, stay up till 2 a.m., but you got to get up and you got to go and you got to work. And if we're going to hit our goals, we're going to be able to do that. What is it about the Iowa program? Because everybody talks about leadership, but it feels like for Kirk and for this football program, it's even taken to another level.
Yeah, that's a great point because it's been a long, long history. I mean, essentially ever since Coach Ferentz got here, and whenever players come back, and they always talk about their times here, and it's very, very similar to how I felt when I was a player, and then it continues to even now with the guys in the building, right? Like it's uh, Coach Ferentz understands the importance of your leadership of your football team, right? Especially your juniors and your seniors. Those are the guys that really help uh, keep that momentum going for your football program. And it starts in January every single year, and that just continues to snowball all the way through the end of the season. Um, when you get there in January, when you start your workouts in January, a lot of times the beginning part is usually the toughest to start, just because you're coming off of a longer break, and now you're finally getting back into working out and getting back into shape now, and that part's really a grind. And the people that are usually going to be typically that are going to be leading are going to be your juniors and seniors, because you know that your program typically is only going to go as far as those guys go. And it continues every single year. Whenever we have competitions, you're expecting your older guys to be leading those competitions. You expect those guys to win every single rep, and that was my mentality when I was a player there. I mean, I always wanted to win, even when I was younger, but it really took it to another level as a junior and senior. Like yeah, I'm going to win every single rep, every competitive rep that I got. Where we're running 10-yard dashes, we're doing an agility drill. Uh, we're trying to hit new maxes in the weight room, things like that. Like I wanted to be, um, you know, the person that everyone looked to, that they saw whenever we saw a list of like, records being broken. Like I want to like my name and stuff to be at the top, or the top performers. I always want my name to be up there. And when younger guys see, guys that are starters or guys that are playing a bunch, and they're the ones that are being at the top of those lists, it makes you think like dang, like, not only are these guys super talented and they're playing a bunch, but they're also putting in the work in the weight room. They're spending the time in the film room. They're spending the time when they're not in class, or they're not at study hall, or they're not working out in the weight room. They're on the football field, and they're connecting with their teammates, and they're running routes, and they're doing different things. And it's so important, because these it may seem like a bunch of little things, and it might feel like, hey, who really cares, because the football season is uh you know 8 months away. But all these little habits, they build up and they build up, and then once you get into spring ball, and you're really competing against in football setting, and then you go through the summer workouts, and it's a lot of the same grinding. Now we're adding a bunch of conditioning. You're still trying to be first. You still want to be the first one crossing the line every single time that we finish a conditioning rep. And then you get into fall camp. Like all that stuff builds on top of each other, and it's a big reason why a lot of the seniors typically play their best football because they've been building these habits over time over 4 years, and then it continues on their career after Iowa, whether they play in the NFL or they play or whatever their professional career may be. They take these habits and they build on top of them, and it allows them to be productive after their career at Iowa. So yeah, it's very very important culture, and it's something that all the coaches understand, and it's preached every single day. And I feel like it's something that's made the culture at Iowa very very strong and continues to do it to this day. You can ask players from back when Coach parents first started, all the way through players now, and they'll say a bunch of the same things.
Really good perspective there. Good stuff, LeShun. We'll wrap things up on the other side with a little talk about Iowa basketball. Both the men's and women's team get ready for huge matchups at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Iowa baseball with a big weekend as well. We wrap things up. Can this Iowa basketball team get things turned around as they come back home? We'll talk about that as we continue here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Trent, Condon, LeShun Daniels back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, LeShun. So a frustrating 2-game stretch. You go to Northwestern on Sunday. You get just absolutely blitzkrieged early in that game. They're hitting shots from all over the place, and Iowa just never could get over the hump. Don't shoot it very well, but Northwestern's good. Wednesday against Wisconsin, that team stinks. And that was the frustrating angle. That game was there for the taking. And now I was in a really precarious situation. Now, they're solidly in the NCAA tournament. Looking at Bracket Matrix today, which combines all the bracketologists out there together, they're the top number 8 seed in that. They're on that 7, 8, maybe 9 seed. They're not on the bubble right now. They're still in good shape, but you got to win games now. And that's the spot that they put them in. Likely, I mean, the double bye is basically completely off the table unless they run the table here and get some help in the Big Ten tournament. In fact, they're probably looking at an 8-9 game. And if they keep losing, they might be playing on Wednesday. I mean, they might be the 11 seed if they keep losing games. And we go from talking about going into Sunday, possibility of a 2 seed, all the way down to 11. That's how tightly packed things are. So first of all, a team that is struggling like this, I mean, shooting the basketball so poorly. I know their home road splits are incredible. The difference between the two, what Iowa does in Carver as opposed to on the road this season, there's a huge gap between the two, and that's going to help coming back home. But kind of the mental aspect of this team, struggling with the shot like it is, it just looked like there were so many times, and they're missing wide open shots. It really felt like there was a big mental block that this Iowa team's trying to break their way through right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at with the basketball team as well. I think they shot like 30% from the field against Wisconsin. It's horrendous, just bad, 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 bad. And then Northwestern, they might have been low 40s. So again, it hasn't been a great 2-game stretch. And then yeah, as you said, like basketball is a little bit different than football. I mean, you're trying to put the ball in the basket every single time you go down on offense, and you gotta shoot consistently. You want to be in that upper 40s, low 50s out on average, right? Whenever you're shooting a basketball, and where I was at right now is I feel like it's definitely a lot more mental than what it is player wise. Because obviously we've seen them throughout the entire season. They can put up points. Every single one of Fran's teams are able to score points and put the ball in the basket. And yeah, right now they're just kind of going through a tough stretch. And then yeah, being on the road is not easy. And we've seen it with this Hawkeye team. You covered it. They're not great on the road. So coming back home and being in a comfortable environment is a great opportunity. They obviously have a great opportunity against Michigan State to be able to get back on track and making the shots that we know that they're used to making. Because yeah, a lot of basketball is mental. I mean, it feels like whenever you get on a stretch where you can't make a basket, you really can't make a basket for a while. That's really what it feels like. So being back in your home arena in a more comfortable environment, you expect to see some of these shots that they've been missing over the past couple games. We expect that those will start to fall a little bit more um, over their next 3 games. Obviously, they go to Indiana
Mhm.
in about a week, but it all starts against Michigan State and getting more comfortable. Back to putting basketball in the basket. Like it's nothing. It's not difficult. You guys have been doing it all season, even in the games that they've lost. Right, for the most part, they've been able to put the ball in the basket. So He's got to get back to that consistency, and being home is going to help that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tuesday, they get Indiana and then finish up over the weekend as they'll wrap up back at home as they will get Nebraska there. Nebraska's playing a lot better basketball. Indiana, they've turned into a behemoth. They're going to get their point guard back in Xavier Johnson here pretty soon. Shafino, the youngster, he's playing really well. Race Thompson, remember, he got hurt in the Iowa game. He's back playing well. That Hoosier team. And they got a little payback on their mind for that one. That's the importance of this game against Michigan State. It just feels like to stop the bleeding a little bit, you got to get this one because you lose, all of a sudden you're looking at a 4-game losing streak with Indiana on tap next if that happens, and then just one game against Nebraska. Maybe playing another bad team. Maybe it's Minnesota in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. This thing can snowball in a hurry. They're in good shape right now. Net still 44 after last night's games. At Ken Palm, they did drop a couple of spots down to 46, but even there, they're in really good shape with the resume. You look at them compared to the other bubble teams. Top quad one wins. They're still up there. They're 6-8 in quad one. You combine that together with quad two, and Iowa in quad two games is 5-2. So they're in good shape. I know a lot of times we kind of go into that sky is falling. Oh man, they're going to miss the tournament. It's not there yet. Get it done. Here's the thing. We mentioned our partners at FanDuel. As LeShun, I think you've got to know, I love gambling on sports. I've been doing it for a long, long time. In fact, my first ever bet was on an Iowa State basketball game back when I was 7, and bet my dad's best friend that game as he was a Cyclone fan, and that was my first bet, my introduction into the world of sports wagering. But if it was in Iowa, this would be one of my favorite spots to bet. And I'm going to bet on Iowa tomorrow. When the point spread comes out at FanDuel, Iowa will be a slight favorite in the game, probably about 3.5 point favorite, something like that in the game. I'm going to be all over Iowa. But it's because it's Iowa. That makes me a little bit nervous, right? But in terms of a situational spot, this is a slam dunk spot. If you're a spot better, team coming off the road, 2-game losing streak, not shooting well, back at home. The differences, I mean, just everything's pointing to. And on top of it, Michigan State, they got that nice win against Indiana earlier in the week after playing their first home game back in East Lansing after the devastation on their campus. You wonder where they're going to be mentally. And when we take the basketball part of it aside, and yes, it doesn't matter in comparison to what happened on that campus there, you just wonder the mental space that Michigan State's going to be in if Iowa can jump out and get on them early and get the win. I think Iowa is going to win this one comfortably. Another thing you know about me, LeShun, I'm not the most optimistic Hawkeye fan out there. I do feel really good, though, about tomorrow's matchup.
Yeah, yeah, I feel good about it as well. Um, I wasn't this year. They've done a pretty good job after a couple of losses. They've been able to bounce back really, really well, especially whenever they're bouncing back at home.
Yep.
They get that game at home. I mean, remember earlier in the season they had the 3-game losing streak. They were on the road twice against was it Nebraska and Penn State, and then they came back. They got Indiana at home, and they rallied with a fantastic basketball game and won that in a nail biter. And I'm feeling the same way about them right now. So feel good about them against Michigan State in at home. And then obviously, yeah, you never know where Michigan State's mental space is because I mean, obviously, it's been a crazy, really week and a half over on their campus as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, I feel good about the Hawks. Think they should go out there and play like the Hawkeye team that we're used to seeing this year.
Women, they get number 2 Indiana coming to town Sunday. Game day will be there. How cool that's going to be. Environment will be incredible. Sold out Carver Hawkeye Arena for the women's game. You get the second ranked team in the country. Indiana just one loss all season. They come in with a huge, huge long winning streak. They're really good too. It's going to be a fun matchup here, but there's not the pressure of playing for a regular season title with the loss to Maryland. That's off the table. Still feel good about that. And it's going to be really cool to have a game day there. The pomp and circumstance, Caitlin Clark, Monica Cesano and company. Going to be really, really cool environment in Iowa City on Sunday.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is gonna be great. I mean, I'm pumped for it. To have game day there is exciting. Obviously, getting more eyes on women's college basketball is great, especially when you get to watch a fantastic basketball player in Caitlin Clark. And yeah, it's a huge, huge game. Um, just hey, I love having a top 10 matchup in Car Rock Arena. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a fantastic environment, and Indiana has fantastic basketball players on their side as well. So I think it's going to be an exciting game. And yeah, I expect Iowa to bounce back, the women to bounce back from the other night. Um, against Indiana this weekend. So yeah, super pumped. Excited to watch anytime Cade McNamara is on. It's must watch TV, obviously. So pretty pumped for this one.
And then the baseball team, big 3-game stand down in Texas. He'll take on Sam Houston State. Pretty good mid-major coming up this evening at 6 o'clock. Langenberg will get the ball there. Brody Brecht is going to get the ball against number 1 LSU. Brody was outstanding last week, 5 no-hit innings in his debut a season ago. Big step up in competition here, though, going from Quinnipiac to taking on the number 1 team in the land of LSU, and they wrap up against Kansas State. Chance for a huge weekend for Iowa baseball. Going to be fun. Hey, LeShun, we are out of time for today. Thanks as always for hopping on with us. We got a lot more football, spring football right around the corner, and tons of basketball and all the other sports in Hawkeye world to talk about. Again, hey, thanks for joining us today, LeShun.
Yes, thank you. Go Hawks.
Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Again, your second listen, check out our brand new podcast as you get ready for March Madness. It's Locked On College Basketball. Our experts, Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, bring you everything you need to know on and off the floor. Plus, you can hear from the big name experts, coaches, and players throughout all of college basketball. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Instant reaction podcast after the Hawkeyes game against Michigan State. Of course, that big chip on the women's side on Sunday. Little baseball, football, always at conversations. For LeShun Daniels, I'm Trent Condon. Thanks for watching and being with us on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Go Hawks.